Welcome to FYI, the podcast where we have brief career chats with various professionals. My name is Diana Ramirez.
And my name is Sarah Shamasha. We are first year experienced counselors, aka FYE, hint hint to our podcast name. Our vision with this podcast is to share the career journeys of alumni who started at the community college.
We're starting in 3,
2,
1.
woohoo!
Another episode. We are here and we have something exciting to talk about. For this episode, we're going to talk about the evolution of fruit flies. Sarah, take it over.
Oh no. Yeah, I can tell you all about Drosophilas, their genetic system, generation time, and what we can do with their muscles and more.
Let's learn all about it. The floor is yours. This is a full episode about fruit flies. Just kidding. I was listening to our first episode. If you haven't listened to it, check it out. And then I was like, wait, we didn't get into this whole fruit fly situation. And I was wondering, tell us more, Sarah. So we had to start the episode. So we're going to discuss it.
Yeah, let's discuss about dissection, reverse transcribing RNA, and maybe how it works with our human bodies.
I have no idea what you just said. So I'm excited to learn about it. All right. No, for real. We are going to have an exciting episode. And the only reason why I invited this guest is so I could say, Bay Area in the house. I'm
Woohoo!
so excited. I'm just kidding, though. We are very, very grateful to have you here. So let's get into our guest. Our guest is Adrian Schurr. He is a regional given lead for Google.org, which supports nonprofit organizations, providing greater access to opportunities for low income and underserved communities. Adrian is currently focused in Bay Area on housing. Before joining the Google, yes, the Google, Adrian served as a program manager for Google Fiber. Adrian received a bachelor's degree in mass communications and Chicano Studies from the University of California, Berkeley, after transferring from City College of San Francisco. A Bay Area native, and he is currently living in East Bay. Welcome, Adrian.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I don't know how many times we can say Bay Area on this podcast, but we should have a counter.
Yes, and then I heard too now Yay area too, so I haven't been in the Bay in a minute, but Yay area, Bay area,
We
all
adopted
that
you.
good
You get the Bay Area pass, so we'll give it to you. Yay
stuff.
area, as long as you want to call it that.
Yeah, well, to give you that professional little intro, but I also wanted to, give you a little bit more of my connection with Adrian. So we actually went to Berkeley together. I had the honor and privilege of calling Adrian my UC Berkeley alumni classmate, and we went together. So thank you for being here today. We are excited to get into your journey. And so where we're going to start and kick it off with is, what is a word that you would describe your career journey, and give us some insight as to why?
So I would use the word nonlinear, which I think is probably pretty common for my experience, not just in my career, but also in education. Sometimes we articulate these goals of like, in 5 years I want to do this, or in 10 years I want to do that, or sometimes you don't even know that what that end goal is, but through these different experiences and different opportunities and meeting different people, you get these different insights into what's out there in the world, right? I think, when I graduated, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. There's maybe 3 or 4 different professions or things that I was excited about. At one point I thought I was going to be a professor. At one point I was like, oh, maybe I'll do like, immigration law or human rights law. And then I ended up doing philanthropy. So, the nonlinear kind of strategy, I think, is how I would define the last 10 to 15 years of my career and my schooling, for sure.
Yeah.
I have a question. When you say I can't say the word in English. The last word you just said, can you kind of elaborate what that is? Because as a non-native speaker, I never know what that means. So if you could just elaborate what you mean by doing that.
So I work in philanthropy and specifically corporate philanthropy. So I work at Google and I handle Google's philanthropy. And philanthropy is essentially giving money or resources or support to community groups, nonprofits, not for profit, NGOs to do the work that they do in community. And so what I do is basically write checks to local nonprofits. In my intro, like Diana mentioned, we focus on things like homelessness and housing, education and workforce development. And so all these different organizations that are doing work in community, I basically give them support, money, resources, tech, access to people to do the work that they need to do to help our communities grow and succeed.
Awesome. Thank you for explaining. That was super useful. I guess just piggybacking off of that, you said, like you were having a hard time deciding what was something that happened, or how did you come to the conclusion that that's what you want to do, since your experience was nonlinear and you didn't really, well, you weren't really sure which kind of pathway to go to.
Yeah, I mean, I knew I grew up in community. Both my parents work in nonprofit spaces. My mom was in education for about 15 years. Like, I knew that my heart and my passion was helping people or being in community with people. And that's such a like open term. There's so many different ways that you can define that or execute against that. And like I said, I was like, man, I could see a version of that being in education, or I could see a version of that helping people with like a law degree or something. So I didn't really know what the end goal was. I just knew I wanted to help community. And so for me, it was more so about connecting with people to help articulate the different versions of what being in community looks like. And being at Google, I started off doing basically like sales and customer support for our advertising department, and I hated it. But it was a way into Google, and by being there, it allowed me these different opportunities to meet people that were doing, diversity, equity, and inclusion work, that were doing education outreach work, and eventually people that were in the philanthropy department. And so, by meeting these people and building up these relationships, I ended up really clearly articulating like, oh man, I know what I want to do. I want to, being born and raised in the Bay Area, especially someone working in tech, we're oftentimes considered kind of unicorns because there's not a lot of us. But I knew, being in community and being from community, especially a community that invested so much into me and my journey, like I knew which organizations were doing great work. I knew which leaders were ones that, needed more support or could do more with a little bit more support. And so being able to know like, oh, there's actually a role in which I can do this was helpful in getting me to where I'm at today. And I've been in this role. I've been at Google for over 11 years at this point, but I've been in this specific role for about 6 or 7 years, and it's been awesome to be able to invest back into the community that has invested so much into me.
Yeah, and I think what you said, right? Often when we hear Google, we hear certain things.
Yeah.
My brother also works from Google, so for what you do and he does is like very different, and so it's kind of nice to see that there's different pathways even within one company, right? Different avenues that you can take. So I'm still waiting for my invite to the Google Cafe. By the way, just let me know. We
Please
can
include me too.
schedule
Can I
can
be a plus
schedule
one?
that. I want an inclusive tour. No, I'm just kidding, but. Yeah, so we could take it a little bit back if we can get to more a little bit of the journey of Adrian when he started community college. Tell us a little bit of your highlights, challenges, just anything about your journey in community college that you think it's important to share.
Yeah, so City College of San Francisco was such an incredible experience for me. Part of the reason why I chose to go to community college was number one, I knew I wanted to get into Berkeley. Berkeley was my dream school from day one. Just given the history of what Berkeley is and what it means to the world, and the kind of activist mentality and rooted in community and systems change. Like that was where I wanted to be. But in high school, I definitely didn't have the grades to get in. And like, my family, we didn't have a lot of money. We had, we were secure, but we weren't like rolling in it. And so I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Right. Like, again, back to this like nonlinear theme. I didn't know what my articulated goal was. And so I was like, I'm going to go to community college because I want to kind of figure it out. I want to save money. I was working also at the time. And so, for me, it was so helpful to be able to save all that money, be at home with my parents, work, and also kind of figure out what I wanted to do. I think I initially started off as a business major, believe it or not. And then I was like, maybe I'll do international relations. And I switched for like a hot second before I inevitably kind of landed in ethnic studies, Chicano studies specifically, and mass communication. But my experience at City College San Francisco was just incredible. I mean, the teachers were awesome, and I think it really prepared me for Berkeley, believe it or not. I know y'all's audience probably is full of transfer students or will be transfer students. One of the things that I really walked away with from my experience at City was just like this immense preparation. Like, you feel this almost like, man, am I good enough? This imposter syndrome when you get into these places like Berkeley. But I could tell you for a fact, I was way more prepared than a lot of my counterparts in these classes. Like, very few of them were managing a job and family responsibilities and community responsibilities, and I already had that down from my years at community college. And so, anyways, yeah, I really enjoyed my experience, and I think it really prepared me for the rigor of a place like Berkeley, but more so just for life in the sense of coming across different people, you know, people returning back as parents or kind of grown adults, people coming out of the prison system, trying to get their lives on track, and everything in between. So it was a great experience for me.
Yeah, and I can definitely relate because I remember going to Berkeley. I was, a little nervous of like, am I gonna be able to handle it? And I remember my brother, shout out to my brother, Omar. He was like, you already developed skills. You developed a community in community college, and you've shown that you can do very well. And that doesn't go away just because you're at a different institution, right? There's different ways that maneuver and move through journeys, but you have that resilience, that experience with you. And so when I was like, oh yeah, because then I started forming study groups. We're going to like the transfer center, right, to get that support from different folks down there. And so yeah, that definitely like speaks to me. Like you're carrying that, and you've already managed work, like you were saying, and everything. And this is just a different space to do it in.
That's right. Yeah, real quick story on that. I fun fact, I have never pulled an all-nighter when I was at college, and all-nighters felt like it was the thing to do. Like everybody was doing it, and I just didn't understand why. I was like, I've managed my time so well. Like I can go to bed at midnight and still be up by 7 o'clock the next day and make it to class. But Diana, goes back to your point of just having the balance of all these different responsibilities and just knowing how to manage your time and manage your expectations, right? And I think that's what allowed me to be successful at Berkeley.
I actually have a reflection because I
Okay.
think everything that you've said so far kind of resonates with me, especially when you said, like, I just wanted to help people. And that's kind of how you came to the decision of, like, okay, I'm going to go this route. Because I think for me, like, beginning with, like, a bio major and wanting to be a doctor was, like, essentially was just, like, the wanting to help people. So then once I figured out that's not really the case where I want to go, I ultimately ended up in a place where I just, like, wanted to help people. So I think it's just like a student important for students to know that like sometimes you have an idea or a value and it doesn't have to look a certain way. It could look in different ways. So I know you kind of talked about it earlier, but I just want to touch on it because I like can relate to it so much. And I feel like a lot of our students know like the idea of what they want to do, but they're not really sure of which pathway to take. And it's good to know like, okay, well you can explore based on your experiences. And like obviously through community college you have so many different experiences that hopefully help you. So you could start at like a different major or a major where you're like, maybe I won't really do this. And that's okay. You can kind of change majors and do more than that. So it's kind of really valuable to like affirm that. And kind of your experience of preparedness, I think, is also really cool because there's different cultures. Like when you start at the university level, the what's it called? All nighters is definitely the culture. Because I was like, am I supposed to be doing this? I did this once for calculus and I was like, okay, I don't remember anything from what I learned last night. So I'm never going to do that again. So definitely you have valuable skills through community college that you maybe won't really have if you had went straight to the university because that's the culture there and you're kind of adapting to the culture. So I just wanted to reflect on that piece because I think like both sides that you mentioned are very, very important. So it's kind of
Yeah.
nice to hear you talk about those things.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, to reflect on your reflection, is, there were so many people that were there to help also, right? Like I did not do this on my own. I hate when people are like, I pulled myself up and did this by myself. Like, absolutely not. Not just my family and friends and people like Diana to help with, passing classes and studying and getting connected to the right people, but like the support resources at the schools themselves, right? Like I was a part of, one or two organizations at community college and at Berkeley, like four or five, where you're building community, not just for the social aspect, which is very important. And something that I would highlight for community college students too. Like one of the things that I went into Berkeley with was like, get all your classes on 1 or 2 days back to back, do the thing, get in, get out. Right. And that was my experience at City College. But places like Berkeley are so different, right? And part of the value of going to those places is also making that social connection and tapping into the transfer centers, the Raza center, the like all these different places that are meant to build community and also support you. And I wouldn't be where I'm at without doing that. And so I would also suggest, for folks listening to this, like tag in with places. I know it could feel a little weird. You don't know anyone or you don't know what questions to ask, but just give it a shot. Go hang out. What does this center do? How can I get involved? Is there anything here that will help me in my classes? Like just put yourself out there and connect with people, because I truly believe that, we're all here to help people. And there are programs, centers, resources that are there to help us. So try to take advantage of that as much as you can.
Yeah, and you heard it live. I was part of Adrian's success, so I will be receiving some of. No, I'm just kidding. No, I definitely agree. I think even within the friendships that we created, right? We were talking earlier before we got on, like going to folks' weddings, that piece of celebration. So it's important to have those connections because they go and carry on even beyond that. We have folks in people that we met with at Berkeley that are professors now and just doing such amazing work to tap in. And I was able to tap in with you to come in here and supporting each other, so it goes a little bit beyond that. I was wondering too a little bit of why did you choose, or what was that moment that you chose Chicano Studies and mass communication? So what was that part that lit for that specific major for you?
Yeah, for me, the way that I looked at it is like one of those majors really spoke to my heart, and one of them really spoke to my brain. I always loved media. At one point, I was like also a film major, which I didn't mention on this, but I loved media. I loved radio. I loved television, film, music. Like my dream at one point was to be a music label A&R person, or a music reviewer. So I really loved media, and I thought a major like mass communication was so open and broad that you could really craft it to do what you wanted to do with it, and really spoke to kind of the things that I liked and was interested in. And then Chicano Studies, I was very lucky. I won't mention my age, but I am mid 30s. When I was in high school, there was no mandate for ethnic studies. There was no like core curriculum that included ethnic studies, but I had the pleasure and gift of taking an elective class that was essentially an ethnic studies course. And you know, uh, growing up in community as a person of color, as a first gen college student, like you see all these things in community and you're not quite sure how to maybe articulate them or put them together. And once I took that class, it really gave me some of the language to understand kind of the systems and structures in which our society operates that are so indicative of the kind of reality of our community. And once I had the taste of that, I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. I want to learn more, right? I want to understand more. I want to do more. And that was why I ended up choosing Chicano Studies. And the gift of Berkeley was like our ethnic studies department is just fantastic and incredible. I was able to take a ton of African American studies classes, ethnic studies classes, Chicano studies classes, and really just immerse myself in what drove my heart. And it's funny because most people ask like, oh, so like your mass comm degree got you a like role at Google, and I actually tell people it didn't. What I talked about in my interview was actually more of my work in ethnic studies, Chicano studies than anything, because it's so relevant, I think, to real life and just the things that I care about.
That's a good segue to our last question, because I'm really curious if you have any advice or tips for people that are trying to be in your position, like if there is an ideal major that they should be doing, or like an internship or a class that would prepare them for those interviews or for like your, I guess, position specifically, because it's like one of those positions where you don't typically have a specific major or like an experience. I know it's like the accumulation of all the experiences, but do you have something that you would advise students to kind of do to, in major wise, or to be involved in?
Yeah, I mean the gift and curse of philanthropy is like there's no one route, no one path into it, right? Like I have colleagues of mine who went and got their masters in humanitarian, health, global health. I have people that went to business school. There's people that come directly from education who are teachers, and everything in between. So there's not really one direct path. But what I would say is, if you're trying to get into philanthropy, one of the best kind of personal or lived experiences, or I should say, one of the best things that you can have. Number one is a lived experience, right? Do you have personal experience with whatever it is that you're trying to work in? So for me, being from here, being a part of all these different nonprofit organizations, like I can personally speak to the impact and what it means from a lot of different perspectives, what those orgs are doing. So really, zoning in on what it is that you have expertise in or lived experience in. But the second thing is, a lot of folks talk about internships. A lot of folks talk about doing research, especially at places like Berkeley. Those are awesome and absolutely valuable. But what I would suggest is for folks looking into philanthropy is direct experience at nonprofit spaces. So whether it's volunteer work or starting your own nonprofit, whatever you care about, chances are there's something in community that is doing a version of that. Getting out there, volunteering, talking about the program that you helped launch, or bringing them the expertise that you have that they maybe don't have. But definitely that, like, get involved, get involved in community, go find the thing that you're passionate about, go volunteer, go get a paid internship to do that. Because that will help you not just throw something on your resume to hopefully help you get a job, but it'll also help you articulate maybe what your next step is or what your next goal is. Quick side story, I at some point I talked about being in business, and I worked at a bank for like 4 months and I hated it, but it helped me understand, oh, this is what I don't want to do. Right. So sometimes those experiences may not lead to a direct job or promotion or pay raise or whatever, but it can also help you articulate some of the things that you don't want to do, which is, I think, equally as beneficial.
Yeah, I definitely think that the things of that you do that you learn that you don't want to do. And I feel that that is piece of the journey too. In one of our other episodes, we just talked about, switching majors and how that isn't necessarily a waste of time, right? It's part of the journey. And sometimes you need to have those experiences to further fuel what it is, the journey that you land on, that you continue to progress, right? But thank you so much, Adrian. We really appreciate having you here. As always, we always feel like we want to have longer conversations with our guests because there's just so much more to unpack. But our goal is to be brief. And so just these gems that you shared with us today are very valuable, and they will sit with our hearts and our journey, but also now with the audience. So thank you again for joining us. Sarah, do you want to close us off?
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure getting to know you. I also expect an invite to Google Cafe now if there is ever one. But thank you so much. It was very wonderful having you. So we are ending now.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Appreciate you
We'll
both.
see you in the next episode.
Yeah. See you later.
Bye.
Take care. Have a good one.
This has been the FYI podcast with the counselors of Grossmont College, brought to you by Liliana Lomelí of Griffin Radio.